I resisted my family and rebuilt my life with the man I loved. Now, just months before our wedding, he's disappeared after secretly considering an open relationship with the help of friends who never fully accepted me. I don't even really know where to begin, except to say that this whole situation just feels strange and deeply uncomfortable. I keep circling back to it in my mind because no matter where I turn for support, I get brushed off. People say things like, "It's not a big deal," or, "Well, he just asked," as though I'm blowing things out of proportion. It makes me feel like I'm standing on shaky ground, second-guessing my own feelings. I can't go to my parents with this, not with our history and how they'd react, so I'm hoping a bunch of strangers on YouTube might offer more understanding than anyone in my social circle has so far. I'm 28 years old, and my fiancé, John, is also 28. We've been together for about 5 years. To even make sense of the dilemma I'm in, I have to rewind and give you some background. Both John and I came from extremely religious households. I don't mean the gentle, quiet kind of religious. I mean the rules shape every second of your life kind. Interestingly, though, the way we responded to those backgrounds was completely different. John became what most people would have called a problem child. He ran away a lot. He rebelled in every way he could, causing trouble, pushing every boundary set in front of him. Eventually, he found a group of friends that his parents most certainly would not have approved of. Most of them were part of the LGBTQ+ community, smoked pot, participated in political protests, and many of them were either atheist or followed spiritual paths outside of Christianity. Some of those people have drifted away over the years, but many of them have stayed and make up his current, very tight-knit friend group. I won't bog you down with all the names and details, but the main people you need to know are Alex, who is 35 and non-binary, and Avery, 33, a man. From what I've gathered, they sort of collected people who were struggling. John once jokingly said that Alex and Avery collected damaged people. They would let folks crash on their couch whenever life got tough. Alex comes from a well-off family and doesn't seem to have to work much. That's as much as I know. And Avery has a stable job in IT, or something along those lines. John met them when he was 15, and they've been a huge part of his life ever since. At first, I was genuinely excited to meet them. John spoke about them with so much reverence and affection, comparing their relationship to that of a child and parent. It was clear that these were two people who had helped shape him into the man he is today. So, naturally, I wanted to meet them and make a good impression. That finally happened when we were both 21, back in college, and home for the summer break. But that first meeting didn't go the way I'd hoped. It left me feeling uneasy and honestly a little disillusioned. From the get-go, Alex was sharp-tongued, making little cutting remarks here and there, mostly about the fact that I wasn't LGBTQ+, or at most, just bi-curious. Avery, on the other hand, didn't say much outright, but treated me like I was a child. You know that condescending tone some people use when they think you don't know what you're talking about? That's how he spoke to me the entire time. When I brought this up to John later, he brushed it off with a laugh. He told me they always had to break new people in, like it was some kind of hazing ritual. So, I tried to stay positive. I tried to win them over. I made sure to talk about my studies and my future plans, both in terms of my career and what John and I hope to build together. I thought maybe if they saw I was serious, stable, and cared deeply for John, they'd warm up to me. But the more I spoke, the colder they seemed to get. Their faces hardened, their comments became more dismissive, and every time I tried to share something meaningful, it felt like they were silently scoring points against me. They made me feel like an outsider intruding on their world, a world where I wasn't quite interesting enough, edgy enough, or broken enough to belong. I remember sitting in John's car afterward, staring out the window, trying to make sense of what had just happened. He told me not to take it personally, but how could I not? These were the people he called family, and they clearly didn't like me. That was just the start of it. Things have only gotten more complicated since then, but that first meeting still lingers in my mind. It felt like the beginning of something I didn't fully understand yet, and now I'm wondering if I ever will. Despite how strange and uncomfortable that first meeting had felt for me, John couldn't have been happier. He was absolutely ecstatic to see Alex and Avery again. On the drive back, he gushed nonstop about how much they liked me. "They think you're great," he kept saying, smiling in that easy, boyish way that made it hard for me to do anything but nod along and pretend I didn't feel the weight in my chest. I kept my mouth shut and tried to convince myself that maybe I was overthinking it, maybe I just needed more time to warm up to them the way he had. But to really understand where I'm coming from, I think it's important to give you a fuller picture of who Alex and Avery actually are. In their town, they're almost like local celebrities. You know the type, The people everyone seems to know, always invited to community events, always surrounded by an air of mystery and admiration. They're deeply spiritual, and their home is a reflection of that. Every corner is filled with souvenirs and trinkets they've collected from their travels all over the world, crystals, statues, odd bits of artwork, and artifacts from places I've only seen in documentaries. It's the kind of house where every object seems to have a story attached. They're also married, though their definition of marriage is very different from the one I grew up with. From what John told me, they traveled to a tropical state, took hallucinogens together, and in that altered state, declared everlasting love for one another. No papers, no ceremony in the traditional sense, just an unbreakable spiritual bond. At first, I'll admit, I thought the whole concept was pretty wild. For someone who was raised with strict, conventional values, it sounded like something from another universe. But I'd like to think I've grown more open-minded since leaving for college, so I did my best not to judge it too harshly. Their path didn't have to be mine. That said, there were still parts of their world I struggled to connect with. For instance, they claim they can see people's auras. Whatever that actually means, I don't fully understand. According to them, they absolutely love John's aura, bright, warm, full of energy, or something along those lines. They've mentioned it more than once. As for mine, well, they've never said anything directly, but something in their demeanor has always told me they don't think much of it. Or of me, if I'm being honest. And that brings me to why I'm even here, why I'm typing all this out in the first place. Last week, after John and I got home from work, he sat me down. His expression was serious but gentle, the kind of look he gives me when he's gearing up to say something important. He told me he wanted to ask me a question and wanted me to think about it with an open mind. Then, carefully, he asked what I thought about being in a polygamous relationship. He said he loves me so deeply, so completely, more than he can even express, and that sometimes he feels like he has more love than one person can hold. In his words, it seemed fair to share that extra love with someone else. He made a point to reassure me that this didn't mean he loved me any less, just that his capacity for love overflowed, and he didn't know what else to do with it. I won't lie, I was blindsided, completely caught off guard. I took a deep breath, gathered my thoughts as best I could, and told him calmly, but firmly, that I wasn't interested. I didn't feel the same way. My love for him didn't have a cap or a container that overflowed. It was just steady and complete with him. That was the end of that conversation. He nodded, didn't push, and we moved on. Outwardly, at least. But I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since. Here's the thing, if you knew John even a fraction, you'd know that he never asks about something like this on a whim. That man researches everything before making even the smallest life change. Whether it's switching phone plans or considering a new diet, he spends weeks, sometimes months, reading, asking questions, weighing pros and cons before even bringing it up. That's just how he is. So the fact that he asked me this out of nowhere makes me absolutely certain he's been thinking about it for a long time already. And if I had to bet, I'd say he's already discussed it with Alex and Avery. I don't want to turn them into villains in this story. I really don't. But I can't ignore the facts I do know. They're not in a monogamous relationship, not even close. Their entire circle seems to favor open or non-traditional arrangements. And they've never liked me much. I can't help but feel this awful twisting in my gut that somehow, somewhere along the line, they nudged John toward this idea. Maybe they didn't outright suggest it, but their conversations, their worldview, their influence, it's hard to imagine it didn't play a role. Of course, I have no hard proof. Just a gnawing gut feeling that won't leave me alone. And I'm not the kind of person who'd go digging through my fiancé's messages unless I had undeniable evidence something was seriously wrong. That's a line I won't cross lightly. But still, I can't shake the feeling that he didn't just come up with this all on his own. 5 years together. Not once had the topic of non-monogamy come up. Not even in passing. And now, all of a sudden, as we're planning to get married, it's on the table? I just don't buy that it's coincidence. And yet, what am I supposed to do now? I can't just march over and confront Alex and Avery, demanding to know if they planted this idea in his head. That would only make things worse. I feel like I'm standing on a tightrope trying to keep my balance, not knowing which step might send everything crashing down. I just don't know what to do anymore. I feel completely stuck. Every day, I wake up and go about life pretending everything is fine. At home, I put on a smile and act like nothing is bothering me. I do the dishes, I fold the laundry, I sit next to John on the couch, and I make small talk like we're still the same couple we were before that one conversation. Because when I did reach out to my close friends, the ones I trusted most, they just brushed me off. "You're overthinking," they said. "It was just a question. Don't read into it." And for a little while, I tried to believe them. I told myself I was making mountains out of molehills, that maybe I was just being sensitive. But no matter how hard I try to silence it, that thought lingers at the back of my mind every time I look at John. He thinks there's a limit to how much he can love me, and he wants to love someone else too. That realization cuts deeper than I know how to explain. It sits heavy in my chest like a weight I can't set down. And I want so badly to deal with it in a healthy way, but the truth is, I don't know how. If I bring it up to John again, I can already picture how it will go. He'll smile softly, tilt his head a little, and tell me I'm worrying over nothing. Or worse, he'll think I'm accusing him of cheating, or that I don't trust his friends. I've worked so hard, so incredibly hard, to get their approval over the years. Especially Alex and Avery's. I bent over backwards, swallowed my pride more times than I can count, just to fit in and show them I was good enough for John. And I know, without a shadow of a doubt, that John shares everything with them. That's the kind of relationship they have. Whatever he's feeling, whatever he's wrestling with, I'm sure it's already been discussed with them long before it made its way to me. He wouldn't keep something like this to himself. Our histories don't help the situation either. Me and John, we both came from deeply religious backgrounds. His was harsher, more rigid, and by the time he was 18, he had cut all contact with his family. My family was strict too, but a little less suffocating. They let me go to college because I had strong grades and a clear plan. The expectation was simple: get a degree, move back home, find a husband from our community, and settle into a traditional life. The life they mapped out for me before I could even choose it myself. Obviously, that didn't happen. I met John, and everything shifted. Within a year of knowing him, I switched from my original major to one I was actually passionate about. I stopped calling home as often, slowly pulling away from the life my parents wanted for me. They didn't approve, of course. They made that very clear. But with John's support, I stood my ground and didn't cave to their pressure. Now, they know I'm getting married, they're invited to the wedding, but the last time we actually spoke was about 2 months ago. It's been distant and strained at best. At first, I didn't mention John's friend group in much detail, because I honestly didn't think they mattered much in all of this. But they do like me, most of them, anyway. In the beginning, they were understandably cautious. To them, I was just a cisgender, heterosexual, white-passing woman. An outsider, in their eyes. But over time, they warmed up to me. I worked hard at those friendships too, and I'm proud to call most of them my friends now. The only exceptions, unsurprisingly, are Alex and Avery. They never quite accepted me fully. Since John and I officially got together, they've taken to calling me the wife, always with this strange little edge in their voice, as if the title is some kind of inside joke I'm not in on. It's not the biggest detail in the world, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't get under my skin. It's small, but it chips away at me in ways I don't know how to explain to anyone else. And the thing that bothers me most lately is that John knows full well what opening up our relationship would mean. He knows it would mean me being emotionally or physically involved with other people too, not just him. And when we spoke, he even framed it as a good opportunity for me to explore my bi-side. The thing is, I've never expressed any serious desire to do that. Sure, I've admitted in the past that I've been curious, that I've found women attractive here and there. But I've never once said I wanted to be in a committed relationship with a woman, or anyone else for that matter. My relationship with John has always felt full and enough. I don't feel like there's a part of me that's missing something. But somehow, he's convinced himself that this is not just something he wants, but something I should want too. Like it would somehow be liberating for me, even though I never asked for it. And that leaves me here, sitting quietly with all of these swirling thoughts, putting on a brave face every day, not knowing who I can turn to anymore. My friends have brushed it off. My family is too far removed from my life to even understand. And John, well, John is the very center of this dilemma. Now, on to what actually happened. 2 days ago, I finally gathered the courage to shoot John a message. We need to talk.
Simple as that.
No elaboration, no softening. I couldn't keep all this bottled up any longer. He works from home, I don't, so as soon as I got back that evening, we sat down together in the living room. Just the two of us. No distractions, no background noise, no TV humming softly, like usual. I think he already knew what it was going to be about. His posture was stiff, his eyes heavy with something that looked a lot like guilt. But I pushed that observation to the side, and just let it all out. Honestly, it was embarrassing. I'd wanted this conversation to be calm and rational. I'd even written down notes beforehand, based on advice I'd gotten from people who had been in tricky situations like mine. I was ready to have a mature, level-headed discussion. But the moment I opened my mouth, it all tumbled out in one long, messy rush. My words poured faster than I could control, every thought that had been festering inside me clawing its way out. Before I knew it, I was crying. Not just quiet tears, but full-on shaking, broken sobs that made it hard to get my sentences out cleanly. John had to reach over and hold me tightly because I felt like I was going to crumble completely right there in front of him. The heart of what I told him boiled down to this. I'm hurt. Deeply hurt. Hurt that the person I'm supposed to marry wants to be intimate with other people. Hurt that he seems perfectly fine with the idea of me doing the same. Hurt that he truly believes there's some kind of cap on how much love he can give me, as if what we have isn't enough, as if I'm not enough. And most of all, hurt that this came out of nowhere. 5 years of building a life together, of dreaming together, planning a wedding, and now, just a few months before we stand up in front of our loved ones to make vows, he drops this on me? We tried to keep the conversation mature, we really did. But by the end of it, John looked frustrated. His brow was furrowed, lips pressed into a thin line, like he was biting back words he didn't want to say. He did apologize, I'll give him that. He apologized for making me feel like I was less than, for springing something so big on me without warning. But then he said something that stopped me cold. He told me that my outlook on open relationships was selfish. That I was only seeing things from my own narrow view and not understanding what he was feeling. What it all boiled down to, according to him, was this. He feels like he didn't have enough time to find himself before committing to me. Honestly, that felt like nonsense to me. Complete nonsense. We've been together for 5 solid years. Never once did he show even the smallest sign that he wanted anything more than what we had. We were happy, really happy. I genuinely thought I had found my soulmate in him. But now, looking back, I couldn't ignore the pattern that had been slowly emerging. Ever since we got engaged, he'd been spending more time talking to his friend group. And, by extension, spending more time in conversation with Avery and Alex. And let me be clear, I don't want to paint them as cartoonish villains. I'm not going to sit here and claim they're evil masterminds twisting John into something he's not. They're interesting people in their own right, sure. But at that moment, all I could think about was how badly I wanted to wipe those self-absorbed, smug smiles off their faces. The memory of them calling me the wife, in that condescending tone, came flooding back, sharper and more cutting than ever. Finally, something inside me snapped. I demanded to see John's phone. His eyes widened, completely caught off guard. We've always had a rule between us. We can see each other's phones if we ever ask, but we don't share passwords or snoop. Our relationship was supposed to be built on trust, not surveillance. Neither of us wanted to feel like a prison guard, keeping tabs on the other. But I didn't care about that rule anymore. Not after everything that had been piling up. To his credit, John didn't hesitate too long. He unlocked his phone and handed it over. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through. I checked his messages, even dug into deleted ones, and, to my surprise, found nothing out of the ordinary. No secret texts, no inappropriate conversations. For a brief moment, I almost felt foolish. But then I checked the call log. And that's where everything fell into place. Call after call, hours long, either to or from Avery or Alex. Some dating back months. Months of conversations that I had no clue about. I could feel the heat rising to my face. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it was echoing in my ears. I looked at him, phone still clenched tightly in my hand, and asked, as calmly as I could manage, "What on earth do you need to talk about with him for hours at a time? And why didn't you tell me about this?" I didn't shout. I didn't scream. My voice came out low and steady, but there was no mistaking the fury behind it. John just sat there, blinking at me, completely silent. And in that heavy, suffocating pause between us, I knew. I didn't have proof in words or texts, but I knew. John finally caved in. After a long, tense silence, he admitted that it was Avery and Alex who first brought up the idea of an open relationship. But he added, they didn't just talk about that. They talked about everything, his uncertainties about marriage, his fears of being tied down, his need for space, and, of course, the concept of exploring non-monogamy. He told me that they were role models to him, that he looked up to them for their unconventional lifestyle, and they gave him a safe place to voice his doubts. Safe place? If I'm supposed to be his wife, why wasn't I the one he felt safe enough to talk to? Why turn to them instead of the woman he's planning to marry? How does that make sense? It was almost like I wasn't even a part of the equation. I was supposed to be the one he trusted above all others. Instead, I felt like an afterthought. I couldn't wrap my head around it. How could he want to marry me, promise to marry me, if he was already having doubts like this? Why even go through all the motions of planning a wedding if this was in the back of his mind the entire time? It's like everything we've built, all these years of being together, was just a placeholder for something more real that he hadn't yet figured out. And now I was the one who had to deal with this. But John promised me he loved me. He said that he still wanted to be with me, that this wasn't about us or our relationship but his own issues with commitment. He assured me that he would go to couples counseling with me, that we'd fix everything. He was even going to book an emergency session with his therapist, he said, to work through his thoughts and feelings. I tried to take that as a sign that he wanted to make it right, that he didn't want to lose me. It was late, and I was exhausted from the emotional roller coaster, but I agreed to go to bed, hopeful that we could figure this out. I was willing to work through it. I love him, despite everything that had happened, despite the mess, despite how much I was hurting. But I also wanted to believe that I wasn't wasting my time on someone who wasn't fully committed to me. I had to trust that his promises meant something, that the man I loved was still in there, somewhere. But the next morning, reality hit me like a freight train. I woke up to an empty apartment. Not just empty in the sense that he wasn't in bed with me. He wasn't anywhere. The apartment was silent, unnervingly silent. I reached for my phone and saw a message from John. It said he needed a few days to think everything over, to process what we talked about. He said he needed space. There was no mention of where he was going, no mention of when he'd be back. He just needed space. I can't even explain how I felt in that moment. It was like someone had ripped the ground out from under me. How could he just leave like that? After everything we talked about, after everything he promised me, he just walks out with no warning, no explanation, no assurance that things would be okay? I tried calling him over and over again, texting, messaging anyone I knew who might have seen or heard from him. I reached out to friends, his family, even his coworkers, but no one could tell me where he was. No one knew. It's like he had just vanished off the face of the earth. I was frantic, spinning in circles trying to make sense of this. I couldn't believe it. How could he leave me in this state of uncertainty after everything we had just gone through? I sent him a message.
I didn't even know what to say at first.
But finally I wrote, "You need to come back. If you don't, this is over. I can't keep doing this." I thought that would be enough to bring him back, to make him realize how badly he was hurting me. But so far, nothing. No response. No call. No sign of him at all. Now I'm just stuck. I took the rest of the week off work because I couldn't focus. All I've been doing is sitting here, staring blankly at the wall, waiting for a message, a call, anything that would give me some sense of where John is, what's going on. I feel completely hollow inside, like everything I've believed in for the last 5 years is falling apart before my eyes. And I don't know how to fix it. I'm trying to be patient. I want to be understanding. I want to give him the space he's asking for, but how am I supposed to do that when I don't even know where he is? How can I respect his need for time when it feels like he's pulling away from me entirely? Some people say I should just leave him, that I deserve someone who won't put me through this kind of pain. And honestly, I've thought about it. I've wondered if maybe that's the best option. Maybe I should walk away and let him figure it out without dragging me through more heartache. But at the same time, I keep thinking I love him. I really do. And maybe, just maybe, this is something we can fix if he comes back, if we really work through this together. But if he doesn't come back? If he continues to pull away from me like this? How can you love someone and still hurt them like this? How can you put someone through this kind of emotional turmoil if you truly care about them? I don't know if I can keep giving him the benefit of the doubt if he's just going to keep disappearing on me.